I am so excited for this day, and I'm especially excited for this next conversation. I get to sit down with Eitan Bernath, a chef, influencer, author, and the supporter of the World Food Program. Please welcome him. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I know how busy you are, so it's really great to have you.
It's not every day you get a little before 10 a.m. Broadway performance,
I know,
so I
we're
enjoyed
so
that
lucky.
immensely.
Ethan, I'm wondering if we can start by talking about your journey in food and how that led you to the World Food Program.
Yeah, I started working in food when I was 11 years old. I competed on the first ever kids episode of Chopped. Before Chopped Jr., lost in the first round. And from there started a food blog where I started documenting what I was cooking. Somehow people cared and continued to do that over the past 12 years. I'm 23 now. I focus mostly on short form cooking videos and food related content. I published a cookbook when I was 19, Eitan Eats the World, and I currently also work on the Drew Barrymore Show as the principal culinary contributor, and we just started our 6th season, which I'm super excited about.
Congratulations.
With the World Food Program specifically, I've worked with the World Food Program for just over 3 years, and for me, I think what motivates me about it is, especially someone who works in food and, touches food all day long with what I do for my occupation, and just as someone who's not food insecure, I think it's so easy to take for granted that I could, open my fridge, open my pantry, and eat virtually whatever I want. Let alone anything,
Right.
is a huge privilege that many people around the world don't have.
Absolutely. The last time we spoke, it seemed really important to you to sort of dispel the myths around humanitarian aid, and I want to give you a chance to do that.
Yeah, so in the food insecurity space, I work with the World Food Program kind of on their global work, and then even here in New York City, we live in what I would say is the greatest city on earth.
It is.
And we have some of the best restaurants on earth, 2 Michelin star, 3 Michelin star restaurants, yet 1 in 4 New York City children do not know where their next meal will come from. I think it's easy to forget when you live in the city that, if you go out to a nice dinner, while you're walking to that dinner, you very likely will pass someone who is food insecure while you're going to enjoy a nice dinner. And so, here in the city, City Harvest is an incredible organization that it's the first and largest food rescue organization. So, here in the U.S., we have so much food, and so much of it goes to waste. And so City Harvest, works with partners all around New York, local states to get food that's in excess and provide it to New Yorkers in need. And something that I think specifically that the World Food Program does globally and City Harvest does here in the city is making sure people get the food with dignity. Someone who cannot afford their own food deserves to enjoy just as high quality produce as those of us who can purchase it. And if you've seen the food that the World Food Program provides, or even just here in New York City, you can go volunteer at City Harvest's warehouse. Yeah. Whenever I volunteer, if this produce was not going to someone who needs it, I would happily take it home and cook with it.
Sure.
This is not produce that's been, sitting around rotting. It's, there's so much produce in this country that goes to waste that farmers, grocery stores, supply chains can anticipate that while the food's fresh. They know it won't go anywhere, and that's the food that's delivered.
Absolutely. We had Jilly from City Harvest on stage earlier this week, and she's just the greatest. And I mean, the embedding dignity in what City Harvest does is just been, the mission from the very beginning, and that's so important. One of the things that you mentioned when we last spoke is not just preserving everyone's dignity, but, sort of making sure that they have that joy and that excitement around food that we all get to experience every day. How do you think City Harvest does that?
I mean, specifically something that City Harvest does that I think is super impactful is making sure the food that gets to the specific communities in New York that need it is food that they actually would eat. So that's specifically, if there is a food pantry that they're supplying that's in a neighborhood that has a large Asian community versus a community that maybe has a large Hispanic community, they're not going to send plantains to the soup kitchen or food pantry that's in a community that would not culturally eat that. They want to make sure that when they're delivering food to people, it's the actual food they can then eat. They don't want that food to go to waste. Or, they have big programs for kosher food, halal food to deliver to Jewish and Muslim New Yorkers in need. And, they're very intentional about making sure that it's food that the people will want to eat. Because there's a lot of statistics that when people receive food aid, that is food they regularly do not eat. Just because they cannot afford other food, that does not mean necessarily that they will use all the food if you give them food they don't know how to cook. City Harvest does programming at their mobile markets, which you can volunteer at, where they will do live cooking demos to teach the people coming to the market how to cook that food. They give out recipes, really making sure that the people getting the food, it's food that they will want to eat.
Yeah, that cultural relevance is really, really important. Sarah and I talked about sort of the business as usual school meal that has been in place for a long time. Your audience has kind of grown up with you, and I wonder, how their palates have changed because school meals are really evolving.
Yeah. I think in terms of school meals, it's something that both City Harvest and the World Food Program do a lot on. The World Food Program is the largest provider of school meals globally. Over 20 million children get school meals from the World Food Program. Here in New York City, City Harvest has an incredible program in the summer called Share Lunch, Fight Hunger, because many students here in New York City rely on their free school lunch meal as their primary source of nutrition and calories. And during the summer, when they don't have that leaves these students unsure where they'll be able to get that meal. So it is a program here in the city that provides extra food assistance to these families that are vulnerable to ensure that these children get food during the summer as well. And I think specifically in terms of, what I've seen is, when I went to school, school lunch, I feel like was something that people would either be very excited about. I honestly would bring a lot of school lunch from home. And I think that, the important part is, the last thing a kid should worry about when they're trying to learn and, get educated to have a bright future is, being hungry during class. I'm someone, I always joke that I get very hangry if I don't get food. And, the last thing that kids should worry about, especially, anywhere in the world, but especially in a city like New York City where we have more than enough food, is hunger and to be able to eat and, not feel like, in so many parts of the country, there's systems where students, if they can't pay their food lunch bill, they won't get food. And so they have to sit next to their friends whose parents can afford food. Right. And that's just ridiculous.
What goes back to dignity
yes.
that you mentioned before. Kids deserve dignity
yes.
as well.
Yeah, no, it's insane that we live in the wealthiest country on earth and there's children who cannot afford school lunch. That's crazy.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Shifting gears a little bit, you make a lot of fun, upbeat content as an influencer, as a creator, and I wonder when you're using your platform to talk about these issues, to talk about City Harvest, to talk about WFP, how does that resonate with the folks who are following you?
Yeah, so using social media to try to reach people about something as important as this, there's a fun challenge, especially with the current kind of algorithmically distributed content systems that exist, of getting the viewers' attention, keeping them so they watch the full video. If I just posted something of me, just straight talking to camera about the World Food Program or about City Harvest, people just with human nature who are going on their phone probably just to, whether they're in between a meeting, sitting on the toilet, you want something to entertain you. Maybe it's not, learning about food insecurity is not the exact thing you're going on your phone for, but it's important. And so no matter where you're scrolling, I think something that I really try to do is figure out how to make a video make content that is educational, entertaining, and informative, which is not easy. I don't always know how to do that, to be honest, but that's the goal, because the goal is to be able to reach people. I think the reason why I feel so passionate about talking about food insecurity is my audience is already interested in food, and I think it's an easy vehicle to kind of keep their interest and get them to watch the full video and to get involved. And I think it's something that I can already connect with my audience on food. So being able to have them pause and realize how fortunate they are, or assuming most of them can afford their food, to not take that for granted. Because it's something I try to remind myself very frequently, because it's so easy to forget.
Yeah, connecting those dots for your viewers, I think, is so important. What's the response been from them on these issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think I get asked a lot, how can I get involved, especially if it's younger people. They say, I don't have money to donate. What can I do? Volunteering your time. If you live here in New York City, City Harvest is always looking for volunteers, and they actually make it a very fun process. You can, look in your pantry if you have, maybe you accidentally bought too many canned goods of chickpeas that are, not expiring for 2 years. You can donate those. You can talk to your friends about it. I think what's really important is there's no action too small. I think when there's such big issues, you hear numbers from the World Food Program. Over 700 million people in the world are at the critical level of hunger. 300 million extreme level of hunger. That can feel very daunting. But the reality is we all can do our own part. And I would say that the best thing you can do is donate your time. I think that is the most important thing you can do.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something that you mentioned before about cultural relevance of food and how important that is. And I wonder how you communicate that to your viewers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about learning about other cuisines and cultures. A lot of the content I do is travel-based. One of my favorite trips I did was I went to North India in the state of Bihar and did content about some incredible programs supporting farmers, supporting women. And I think it's a really easy way through storytelling to, I think people resonate with individual stories a lot more than numbers. And so that was a great way to, show these programs. There was a program that I was highlighting in a bunch of villages where they were teaching women how to raise their own goats. And so these women who typically, historically are very marginalized and don't have access and, without a way to earn income are, then less powerful. And so these women are able to earn income. And, I, showed video footage and speaking to these women about how empowered they were about being able to, pay for their children's schooling. And not a single woman there spoke about anything she bought for herself. It was all about supporting her family. And it was incredible about how much pride, I think a lot of people, want to be able to, no one wants to have to get a handout. And so I think some of the most incredible programs out there are also just supporting people and helping them, kind of teaching them how to fish in a sense. And that was really impactful. And I think my audience responded very well. The stories, we connect, I think, on an individual level, and I think that's very effective.
Yeah. You're such an upbeat person, especially in your videos, and you're really, encouraging people. The world is a little bit dark right now, and I wonder what personally gives you hope to keep that upbeat attitude.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a big thing that I recommend is deleting social media and the news from your phone on the weekend.
On the weekend, he says.
On the weekend. No, on the weekend. It's my job during the week. I think that's important. I think I'm very much a news junkie. I have every single news app on my phone with alerts. I like to know what's going on in the world at every moment in time. When I wash dishes during the workday, I'll put on the news. And I think we live in a time where, we're just constantly fed information. And it's easy to forget that, if you go back 200 years, you didn't know what was going on at every moment in time. And obviously it's important to be informed. It helps you with your advocacy. But you don't have, I think something that I've realized is nothing will change if I find out about something that happened, especially on a weekend when it's good to reset, right when it happened or a day later.
Sure.
And so that's been something that's important because in order to, do your work and, try to contribute in activism and everything is you have to take care of your kind of, put your own oxygen mask on first. And that's my number one thing. And I think that keeps me kind of recharged, at the start of the week. And to, also I think spend time hearing positive stories. I think social media is just a cesspool of negativity. And to, seek out positive content, hear about positive things going on in the world. And not that you want to ignore all the awful things going on in the world, and those are important to focus on, but if that's all you're paying attention to, it can really make you down, and I think it's important to keep yourself positive.
Absolutely. Self-care, I think, is something
Yes.
that Gen Z is doing really well. They understand that they have to
I don't know about
understand.
that, but
No, I mean, they understand that going off social media is
Yes,
important
very
sometimes.
important.
I think I'd love to ask you, as somebody who is also on social media, what kind of content do you find most effective?
Yeah, I mean, I think storytelling and positivity, I think, and it can be hard, especially in a space of hunger, just not a positive topic, is talking about also what works. Obviously, it's important to talk about the problems, but, on that trip I did to India or some other trips I've done, talking about food insecurity is talking about what does work. As you guys just spoke about a few minutes ago, there are so many solutions that are working that obviously need to be scaled. And I think that being able to see what's working and to share the success stories can just educate others about what's working and what they can try, and just again motivate yourself. I think that it's such a daunting issue, and I think breaking it down to what is actually achievable, whether in your own community. My grandma Bobby now lives a few blocks from my parents in New Jersey, but when she used to live in Ossining in Westchester, she would volunteer every weekend and sometimes during the week at her local soup kitchen. She's quite old. She couldn't do cooking. She couldn't do much. She would, check people in. And I think that was, something that really inspired me growing up was, she's very old. Very, very, you would think if Grandma Bobby can find time and a way to help, then we all can, or we all should be able to.
Absolutely.
She now has hit the point where she can't. She sticks to donating, which is great as well. But I think that's something that really inspired me.
Yeah, that's great. Grandmothers are great for that. You've grown up as a content creator. I wonder what advice you have for other young influencers and creatives who want to be like you.
Well, first I'd say don't do it. It's a job enough for everyone. But I think the important thing is to, know what your goals are. I think something that, frustrates me a little is everyone's like, authenticity, which is important. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for it to be your career, it's your career. And I think to treat it like that. When I was 12 years old, my third ever blog post on cookwithchefeitan.com, a now defunct website, was sponsored by a chocolate chip company for $100, which paid back for like a tenth of the groceries my parents had paid for that month. And I think just, knowing what your goals are, separating yourself from your work is really important. It's something I've had to work on a lot is, I describe this job as having a boss that changes what they want constantly, won't tell you what it is, and is very brutal. I could spend a whole day on a video, post it, and it'll totally flop. And I have no idea why. I could take a guess. I could try again. But it can be very hard when your job and what you're doing all day is your face and your work for it to flop. And it's something I've had to work on a lot. My friends sometimes will joke if they call me and I sound down, they're like, what video did bad today? And so to try to separate that is, I think, very important because... And to be honest, it's not something I'm always great at, but it's very important to separate yourself from your work because it can feel very daunting. If something does bad, people love to blame the algorithm. I blame Eitan.
Poor thing. I'm sorry. Don't blame yourself.
No, don't cry for me. It's okay.
No. It's really good advice, though. You have a book that I want to make sure gets promoted a little bit here because I think it's a great book and it's
Thank
fun.
You. Yes, Eitan Eats the World. My cookbook. I kind of described it as comfort food from around the world. I've always been really fascinated learning about the cuisines of the world. And something I try to do in my content is, I can't teach you how to make the best Indian curry. I'm not Indian, or garlic naan, but I've learned from my friends who are Indian and lots of incredible chefs, and kind of I learn with my audience. Is kind of the angle I go in. I describe myself as a knowledgeable, very enthusiastic learner who's excited to take my audience on that journey. And this book is something I've worked on since I was kind of a young teen that I was always dreamed I'd get a cookbook.
Yeah,
And so a lot of these recipes are from literally when I was like 12.
Oh, I love it.
Spell checked, grammar checked once they were published. And yeah, it's a fun book. I think it's on sale on Amazon. So
What?
yeah, it's like $15.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. I hope folks buy it. Where can they find you on the web?
You can find me online at Eitan, E-I-T-A-N. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you for
conversation.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.